If you have ever felt more alone inside a relationship than you ever felt by yourself, stay right here. What I'm about to tell you took me 62 years, 2 marriages, and 1 complete breakdown to figure out. Subscribe if this channel is new to you, because I have more truth left to tell and not as many years left to tell it in. My name is Nadine. I am 74 years old. I live in Memphis, Tennessee, and I want to tell you something your mother never told you, your doctor never told you, and every romantic movie you ever watched lied to you about. Choosing celibacy after 60 was not a loss. It was the first real gift I ever gave myself. Before you click away, before you decide I am bitter or broken, let me be clear. I found plenty of men. I was married twice, 3 serious relationships after my second divorce. I was not someone who gave up on love. I was someone who nearly lost her mind inside of it. And there is a very important difference. Here is what nobody talks about. Research from the American Psychological Association has shown that women over 60 living alone consistently report higher life satisfaction and lower chronic stress than women in unsatisfying long-term partnerships. Not women in happy relationships, women alone, reporting more peace than women in the wrong ones. And yet we have spent our whole lives being told that alone is the worst thing a woman can be. That is the lie I am here to dismantle today. I am a retired vocational nurse, 31 years across Memphis, Nashville, and Birmingham. I have sat with 94 people as they took their last breath. Not one woman, not one, said she wished she had stayed in the relationship that was costing her peace. Not one. And I am here at 74 to make sure you do not get to that moment and say the same. Let me tell you about Patricia Simmons. I cared for Patricia in her home in East Nashville, Tennessee, from the spring of 1998. She was 71 years old. Married to Gerald for 48 years. Beautiful Craftsman house off Gallatin Avenue, a yard full of flowers she grew herself. From the outside, a full life. But I was in that house every weekday for 11 months. And what I watched was a woman who had not had one uninterrupted thought in 5 decades. Every morning, her first thought was Gerald. What does Gerald need? Is Gerald in a good mood? Her entire inner world had been swallowed by the management of someone else's comfort. One October afternoon in 1998, I remember it clearly because the leaves were turning gold. Patricia looked at me from her porch chair with this expression I have never forgotten. She said, "Nadine, do you know I cannot tell you one single thing I actually like? Not a food, not a color, not a song. I only know what Gerald likes." Then she said softly, "I think I disappeared somewhere, and I cannot remember when it happened." Patricia passed away in February of 1999. Gerald remarried 18 months later. Patricia's garden was dug up to put in a patio. This is not a rare story. This is the pattern I watched repeat itself across 31 years. A woman loses herself so gradually, she does not notice it happening until it is already done. This is not the only woman I watched this happen to. Let me tell you about Rosetta Ingram. I did not care for Rosetta professionally. She was my neighbor for 9 years on the east side of Memphis, from 1989 until she moved to be near her son in 1998. Rosetta was 64 when I met her. She had been divorced for 6 years and had been in a relationship with a man named Philip almost the entire time since. Philip was charming, attentive in public, and exhausting in private. He had opinions about everything, How Rosetta cooked, how she dressed, which of her friends he thought were a bad influence, how much time she spent on the phone with her daughters. And Rosetta adjusted to every single opinion. Month by month, year by year, she became smaller and quieter and more careful, the way a person gets when they are always bracing for the next correction. I remember sitting with Rosetta on her front steps one evening in the summer of 1996. It must have been July because the heat was brutal even after sundown, and she told me something that has never left me. She said, "Nadine, I left my marriage because I was suffocating. And somehow I ended up in the exact same room with a different man." She said it without self-pity, just flat, tired recognition. Then she laughed a small, sad laugh and said, "I think I do not know how to choose anything different, because I do not know what different would even feel like." That sentence. I do not know what different would even feel like. I have turned that over in my mind 100 times since she said it, because that is what years of performing availability does to a woman. It does not just take her peace, it takes her imagination. It takes her ability to even picture a life on her own terms. Rosetta eventually did leave Philip in 1997. She moved to Charlotte, North Carolina the following year to be near her son. The last time I spoke to her, she was 73 years old and living alone in a small apartment with a cat she had named after herself. She told me she was the happiest she had been since her 30s. "I water my plants in the morning," she said, "and nobody tells me I am doing it wrong." I made the same mistake, more than once. My first marriage was to a man named Terrence, June of 1973. I was 22. Terrence was not cruel. He was unreachable, present in the room, unavailable in every way that mattered. I spent 14 years trying to get him to see me. I reshaped my personality, shrunk my ambitions, stopped having opinions that might cause friction. We divorced in 1987, and I looked in the mirror and did not recognize what was looking back. My second husband, Clifford, was warm at first, but by year 4 I was shrinking again, that slow, quiet disappearing act. We divorced in 2001. I was 50 years old and had been performing a version of myself I did not recognize for almost my entire adult life. 3 more relationships followed, and in every single one, the same erosion happened. Not because those men were monsters, because I had never learned to stay whole inside intimacy. I had been taught from childhood in Clarksdale, Mississippi, from church, from every message sent to Black women of my generation, that a good woman makes herself available, always. My body sent me the bill in 2013. My doctor called it a severe depressive episode. What I now understand is that it was the complete collapse of a self I had been slowly dismantling for 40 years. I was in a relationship with a kind man named Walter, and even his kindness felt like a weight I could not carry. I ended things in November of 2013, 62 years old, stepping away from what felt like my last chance. Every fear about aging alone was deafening. I chose myself anyway. By February of 2014, a cold, quiet Thursday in my apartment, I got into my bed and the silence felt like mine. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking this is just loneliness with a different name. So let me be direct. Loneliness is the pain of unwanted disconnection. Solitude is the peace of chosen presence with yourself. You can be profoundly lonely inside a marriage, in a bed with another body right next to yours. I know because I was for years. What I found in celibacy was not loneliness. It was the first real solitude I had ever known. And solitude, it turned out, was where I had been hiding from myself my entire life. Here is what 11 years of choosing my own peace has shown me. Your nervous system needs rest that no amount of sleep provides if you are constantly managing another person's moods and emotional temperature. That low-level chronic stress, being available and agreeable and warm on demand, is as damaging to your health as anything you were ever warned about. My blood pressure, dangerously elevated for years, normalized within 8 months of choosing solitude. My anxiety medication was reduced by my doctor within the year. At 74, I have finite bandwidth, and I have chosen to spend it on my grandchildren, my morning walks through Shelby Farms Park, the women in my church who need someone to sit with them. I do not have energy left over to manage another person's ego. That is not selfishness, it is wisdom. And this culture has spent decades teaching women to confuse the two. Let me show you what a deliberate choice looks like. Carolyn Patterson. I met her in 2015 at a grief group in Germantown, Tennessee, a year after she lost her husband Lawrence of 30 years. 65 years old, silver locks, soft-spoken. She did not immediately look for a replacement. She got quiet on purpose. She visited her sister in Portland. She took watercolor classes on Saturdays. She told me, "I spent 30 years being Lawrence's wife. I want to find out what it means to just be Carolyn." I had lunch with Carolyn last spring. 74 now, same as me. She is the most genuinely settled woman I know. Not performing contentment, actually at rest inside herself. She said, "Nadine, when you know who you are without someone else writing your story, you stop accepting things that make you smaller. You just stop. Because you finally know what you are worth." That is all of it. That is the whole thing. I grieve the years I spent invisible inside relationships I was told would complete me. But I am standing here, fully, quietly, completely myself, telling you it is not too late. Not at 60, not at 67, not at 72. The question you must be willing to ask is the one Patricia Simmons never got to answer, the one my mother never asked. Who am I when I am not being who someone else needs me to be? Sit with that in the silence, for days if you need to. The discomfort is the teacher, because your peace is not waiting on the other side of one more relationship. It has been inside you this entire time, patient and quiet, waiting for you to get still enough to hear it. Call your daughter today. Call your sister. Call the friend you have been too busy managing a relationship to call. Tell her something true, because there will come a day when you cannot make that call. Do not let it arrive before you have made it. That is the truth nobody told us. And I am not going to leave this earth without making sure you heard it. If something in this reached you, and I think you know if it did, leave a comment. Tell me your age and one true thing you have been carrying. Because the woman who scrolls through after you may be sitting alone right now, thinking she is the only one. Your honesty could be what saves her. Subscribe, share it with someone who needs it, and go be a little kinder to yourself today than you were yesterday. Now, let me go check on my tomatoes.